I'm going to speak to the mistakes that I see because this wasn't something that I fell victim to, but just putting yourself in this like unnecessary power struggle with the bio mom, like just know your role. I mean,
Mm,
it's much easier when you do. You have to remind yourself that this person chose to be with you. They're no longer with the other person romantically, but they're going to have to be together as partners for the children. And if that's not something you can handle and you are intimidated by that relationship that they have, you should not be this person's partner just for the sake of the kids. That's how I feel about it. Um, no parent should have to feel guilty for parenting and doing what they need to do for
absolutely.
their kids.
So, hi, and welcome to the Blending and Mending podcast. On the episode today, we have Michelle Dempsey-Multack, and I am so humbled and so excited, Michelle, to have you with us today. Michelle is a mummy, she's a stepmommy, she is a book author of Moms Moving On, which is deemed the divorce Bible. So, we have to get into some of that later, please. And also a divorce coach. So, Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to join a podcast all the way here in South Africa.
Of
So
course, I
excited
think
to
it's
have you.
amazing that we're in a space in this world where we can do that. So I'm happy to be here.
I know it's phenomenal. So, Michelle, let's get stuck straight into it because I think there's just so much about you and your profile, but just what you share on your blogs and on your Instagram that's just resonated with me. So, if we think about just your story, I mean, married life, divorced life, single life, remarried life, you now have your own blended family. Let's talk
Yes.
a little about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 6.5 years since my separation. I separated when my daughter was 2. I was 33 years old and kind of thought like I knew I wanted to get married again one day, but I wasn't also like living my life to find someone. I was
Yeah.
very content being alone. It was the first time I had been alone in my entire adult life, really. And I enjoyed it, but when you least expect it, magic happens. And I met my now husband, and he had a daughter. I have a daughter. And here we are 6 years later, completely blended. We got remarried almost 4 years ago.
Okay.
We got married. I was remarried 4 years ago. And now our girls are 8 and 16, and it's been an incredible journey. Being a stepmom is incredibly special to me because I had a stepmom growing up. And while my
Okay.
parents' divorce was horrible and I didn't have the best relationship with my father, my stepmom was always so good to me and so kind and always understood what I needed and tried to give me that. And that left such an impression on me. So I feel grateful that when I met my now husband and, there was a possibility of us taking things to the next level, I knew how to handle stepmom life and what his daughter needed because I was exactly her age when I met my stepmom as a kid.
Okay.
So it's kind of life coming full circle. But I love our little family so much. It makes me so emotional to think that in 2 years, my stepdaughter will be off to college, and then everything we've worked for will change. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm very happy.
So there's this blueprint then that you've had growing up to know how to step into that space of being a stepmom or a bonus mom. But what was that like right in the very beginning of you guys dating and then deciding to take that next step and potentially meeting the kids, meeting the girls? What was all of that like for the two of you?
Well, it was helpful that our girls are different ages because I'll tell you that the way we handled it with my daughter was very different than how we handled it with his. Mine was 2,
Okay.
she was still in diapers. She didn't know from, divorce or boyfriend, girlfriend. And so when she did meet my now husband, she met him as mommy's friend. And she believed that. Like, what is she?
Yeah.
She doesn't know about relationships. But we were definitely more careful with his daughter because, you know, I know the relationship between the dad and daughter is sacred, and I never ever wanted her to feel like someone was moving in on her territory because I
Mhm.
I, I remember those feelings as a kid before I got to know my stepmom. It was like who are you? Why are you here? Give
Yeah.
me my dad back.
What are you
Um,
doing?
right. And I knew that no matter how well I played it, no matter how kind and generous and loving I was, she would still have those feelings. So I was very cognizant of that from day one. Um, and I think the best thing I did was I kind of forced my husband to take things slow, not with us, but in terms of me coming into his daughter's life. Like when we
Yes.
met, it was great, but I'm like, this doesn't mean we need to start spending every waking minute together because then she'll resent me. So you enjoy your time with her. Where I fit in, I'll come. When she wants me to be somewhere, I'll be there. But I didn't want her to feel suffocated by my presence.
Okay.
That was really important to me. Whereas with my daughter, it was a little bit easier. We still played it cool. He wasn't with us all the time. And when he was with us, it was, she was going to sleep already and he was coming over. But it all sort of it all sort of worked out. By the time my daughter was 4, we were getting engaged and already had formed a really great close relationship with his daughter. So timing is everything. And timing really helped
Absolutely.
us.
And the kids, I think, also have their own rhythm. And what I'm hearing from you is you really took the time to respect that space, to respect what your stepdaughter needed during that time to really form that relationship. Um,
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake I see stepmoms making, at least the ones that I work with or clients I have who have to adjust to a stepmom being with their children now,
mhm.
there's this need for control. Um, and I see it time and time again. Like, I'm here now. I want to be respected as a mom. You need to listen to me. And there's like this power struggle with the bio mom. And I never needed to have that. Like, I never understood that. I never wanted to claim this child as my own. I love her
Mhm.
as such, but I'm very aware that, like, I'm just here. Like, she owes me nothing. And having that awareness and that understanding and not putting the pressure on her to treat me like her mother, I think made all the difference.
Can I tap into that? Because I had drinks with girlfriends probably about a month, 2 months ago, and we were talking specifically about you have children with your partner, with your husband, and it might be this beautiful dinner for the two of you, and the phone rings, and your partner needs to take that call because it's the ex wife who wants to speak about the child, right? So there's a time and a place. And what we were saying is sometimes it's hard as the stepmom to take that step back, to give them that space that they need. How did you navigate that? Or was that ever a struggle for you?
No, because I needed the same in return. I have a
Okay.
very close and open relationship with my daughter's father. Um, I mean, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies the first couple of years, but now it is.
Mm.
But I needed somebody who would respect that, like, I have a 2-year old. I'm now co parenting a baby, and like 99% of my energy and my stress is focused on that. And like, you fit in where you fit in. So if I see my ex calling while we're at dinner, like, I don't even need to say, excuse me, I'm sorry. I just get up and take the call,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's the same thing. I never wanted to feel like I was doing something wrong by putting my daughter's needs first. And I know it's very much the same for my husband. So we definitely give each other that space. But I know that's really hard for people. I know it's hard for people who, you know, start dating after divorce and they're dating somebody who doesn't have kids and isn't divorced and they don't understand what it means to like live
Hmm.
your entire life for these little people that need you
Absolutely.
even when they're with the other parent. So I know it can be challenging. Um, but in our case, I'm coming from divorce. I understood it. I was very sensitive with his daughter, and so I reached out to my husband's ex-wife very early on in our dating relationship and was just like, hey, like, I know this is awkward and you don't have to respond and you don't have to be my friend, but I'm here and I'm going to be around your daughter, and
Lovely.
please know that you are mom, and I make that known in every conversation and everything we discuss and do. If you ever need anything, I'm here.
Yeah. And that's so important. I mean, I've seen it in our situation with the kids just having to be on the same page and not wanting to step into a space or a title that isn't yours. So my stepson a few months ago, and I hate saying step because he's my boy, but he came to me and he said to me he wants to call me mommy. I looked at myself, Geordie, but mommy's such a big word and it's such a special word. you have a mommy, and that's a really, there's a title and there's a relationship, and it's special for the two of you. Let's think of something else. Let's think of another word that you could call me. And I don't know if I handled that the right way, I must be honest, but I am absolutely on your page in terms of there are different people in our children's lives, and they're in a situation where they have a mommy and now they have a stepmommy, but we played very different roles, even though we love the children just as much.
Yeah, I mean, I would never be comfortable with
Yeah,
someone else's child calling me mom.
yeah,
Um, I know there are situations in which, maybe the biological parent is no longer alive or in the picture, and that's very different. But when they are, there's no need in my mind for that. I mean, I'm not trying to
agreed.
pass judgment, but I would never want my stepdaughter to call me mom, nor would I want my daughter to call her dad's
Yes.
partner mom. I would die.
But that I think was also a trigger for me, because I thought to myself, Mila has such an incredible relationship with her father. I've got a good relationship with him. I would never want to take that title away from Tyler and have it shared with someone else. So
Right.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely relate. Michelle, going into a space with a blended family dynamic, what would you say were some of the parts that gave you absolute joy and the parts that absolutely scared the hell out of you going into this brand new dynamic of taking on a household and becoming this new family unit?
I mean, the joy for me was really I'm a nurturer, and like I would live my life in the kitchen cooking for everybody, and I'm a host and I love to gather. And so having a family again was really, really nice. And especially because my husband and I are both so intent on family time and family dinners. And like to me, that's still the most joyous part of my life. Like when both the girls are here after school and we're
Mm-hmm.
sitting around the kitchen island having snacks and talking, like those moments for me are pure joy. Taking our vacations, doing the little things that we do, getting our puppy, like really becoming a family. The things
Yeah.
that were really hard for me in the beginning when we all moved in together, this feeling of like I'm under a microscope, like no matter what I do, say, wear, whatever bad mood I have is going to go back to, the other parent. And from both my daughter and my stepdaughter, and I it was really hard the first couple of months, and I felt like I couldn't like, and then I'm like, what the hell do I care? Like this is my life, this is who I am,
Yeah,
and
it's your home.
whatever goes back, and it is what it is. But I got over that pretty quickly. But that was hard. That was definitely hard. And also I think um like figuring out where we fit in with discipline, right? Like I was never, and I am never going to discipline my stepdaughter. She has two parents who can do that. Like she's also not a wild kid that needs to be told what to do. But my daughter, on the other hand, by the time we moved in, was between 4 and 5 and was a toddler. Like, and so I had to allow, and I wanted my husband to come in and intervene in certain situations, whereas I wasn't going to do so with his daughter because it just felt inappropriate. So
Okay.
there was a learning curve there. I will say that 6 months after we got married and all moved in together, the pandemic hit. So
Okay.
but that was challenging because my stepdaughter was in middle school at that point and wanted to go out and be social. We're trying to figure out like, can we let her go out? And then if we let her go out, is my daughter's father going to be upset that like she could be bringing germs in the house? That was a very tricky time.
Okay, so that's just considering all sorts that would never have been on the table before, right? That's a
Right.
different
Yeah.
lens
Yeah.
completely.
Absolutely.
So in my situation now, so I've got my 6-year-old. So our stories are actually very similar. So also 2.5 when my daughter, when her father and I split, she was 2.5. And we've got Tristan in our lives now. And there are days where I struggle when he raises his voice. And when I say raises his voice, he's maybe a bit firm in the sense of, Mila, mommy spoke to you. Did you hear mommy spoke to you? Or Mila, don't wave your fork around when you're eating. She's got this thing where she just sings to herself and the food's going and like living her best life. And I've had to check myself because I can almost feel my tummy turn. And especially in the beginning, I genuinely struggled with it. And we came to the same agreement. I'm not going to discipline your son. I don't necessarily want you to discipline my daughter, but I want us to step in and be a team when we feel we need to be a team for the kids.
Right. And I also feel like there is a certain level of respect that is built when, when my daughter started to see my husband as a father figure, not her father,
Mm-hmm.
but someone to be respected, that made a lot of difference too. And she loves him and adores him, but he had to be able, I wanted him to tell her, no, don't do that. So she would understand that, like, this isn't just your buddy. This is somebody you got to
Yes.
respect. Um, and, and we've worked really hard at that. We're really proud of that. I got to say, we talk about it all the time, like just how we've
Yeah.
navigated this. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. There were many hurdles, like, moving in and trying to figure out how to keep everyone happy. And we both have only children who are used to being the center of attention. So there was a lot of hard work put in.
Mm-hmm. I wrote a blog recently where we were saying to become a mom. I always say that when you fall pregnant, you a mom from the moment you find out that you're pregnant. And I almost feel daddies only become fathers on the day they actually meet their children, and they've got the smile that you've never seen before that they say for those little human beings. But when you become a stepmom, you don't have all that time to get to know this child. And so the relationship grows in a very different way. And I was saying with my stepson, Jordan, for example, doesn't eat butter on his bread, but he loves the crust. Mila loves butter, but she doesn't love the crust. And it's been trying to figure out, right? What happens in the kitchen, who eats what, how we're going to do this. And I must be honest, that's probably been one of my biggest struggles with them moving in over the last year and a bit, where, okay, Geordie, this is what you eat, Jordan, this is what you don't eat. And he's so sweet. He'll sit across the kitchen counter and say, it's okay, you're still learning. And so we have this really
That's so
open
nice.
dynamic at home. It was so, so sweet. But it's about getting to know a little human being who's already 8 years old and trying to cram all of that time into the time that you have now to get to know them and who they are and what they like and what they don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say what's been hard also for us is the age difference. So, like,
Mm,
I can have different conversations with the 16-year-old than I can with my 8-year-old. And my 8-year-old will sometimes tell me, like, Mommy, I feel left out because I don't know what you're talking about. And so having to check myself and, like, you know, modify the conversations we have a bit so that Bella, my daughter, doesn't feel left out. That's tough. But it's also really nice to have kind of like another adult in the house. My stepdaughter's a woman now for all intents and
yeah.
purposes, and she's a fantastic one at that. And I love our conversation. So I'm always trying to, like, hear her and give her the space while also answering in a way that my daughter can understand, and then having to re-explain the conversation to my daughter. But I guess that's what you do.
It's what we do. We're moms,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, if we shift the lens to the girls, and in your situation specifically, what do you think they really struggled with families coming together and now having to be one unit?
I think my stepdaughter definitely struggled more than my daughter. My daughter was just so excited to have, like, a big sister and, like, people in the house, and it was fun for her. But I think my stepdaughter had to adjust to having this, like, little toddler around her all the time who always wanted to play, and she was learning how to be patient and tolerant and respectful. And I know that wasn't easy for her. And then it was like, for her, my husband was trying to split his attention between my daughter and his daughter feeling jealous or left out a little bit in the beginning. And we were cognizant of that. So I think that was a struggle for her. I definitely not anymore, but in the beginning, there were growing pains in that sense. But my daughter, you know, I think her age just made it so much easier for her.
Yeah. She also sounds like a carefree spirit, though, is she?
Bella, it's hard, like, a little bit, but she's also really, like, neurotic and uptight, like me. She's a bit of everything. She's definitely a much more amazing and confident and self-assured person than I was at that age. Like, every day I look at her, I'm like, who are you? Because you're amazing and you didn't
Mhm.
get this from me. But now as she gets older, she has more anxieties and curiosities. But yeah, as a little kid, she was, like, so fun and go with the flow, and it changes at 8 years old.
Oh, I feel like I'm there at 6. I always say Mila's 6 going on 16. We'll get there. Rusa, Michelle. Rusa.
Wait till late, babe. Wait till late.
Oh, gosh. Wine, I need wine. Michelle, in terms of just mistakes, if you had to really think about things that you would have done differently, advice that you would give to stepmoms now going into a blended family space, what would you say are some of the mistakes, if you don't mind sharing, that you would resonate with, that you would say, girl, this is what you need to focus on. Don't do what I did. What would that be?
Hmm. I mean, I'm going to speak to the mistakes that I see because this wasn't something that I fell victim to, but just putting yourself in this like unnecessary power struggle with the bio mom, like just know your role. I mean,
Mm,
it's much easier when you do. You have to remind yourself that this person chose to be with you. They're no longer with the other person romantically, but they're going to have to be together as partners for the children. And if that's not something you can handle, and you are intimidated by that relationship that they have, you should not be this person's partner just for the sake of the kids. That's how I feel about it. Um, no parent should have to feel guilty for parenting and doing what they need to do for
absolutely.
their kids. So I would say that. I would also say that I think the mistake a lot of people make is waiting too long to introduce their kids to the new person. Uh,
Okay.
they say, oh, you got to wait 6 months, or my parenting plan says I can't do it for a year. And now you're with this person for a year and you've fallen in love and you introduce your kids, and this person seems like a totally different person around your kids. They're not warm, they're not loving. You're like, what the hell is happening here? And you feel kind of stuck. It was very important to me to see how my now husband would relate to my daughter. I had a toddler in diapers. She was spilling her drink across the table anytime we went out in public, and I needed to see, is this something he can handle? And I wanted to know that early on. So if you really get a hunch that this person is the person for you, have an informal meeting, get a gauge, have them play in the park, see, like, is this person putting on a show for me, or is this genuine? Does this come natural to this person?
Hmm.
Because that's going to tell you everything you need to know about your future with them.
That's huge. So I had a podcast a few weeks ago with a woman who was chatting through dating after divorce, and she said part of her process is she has a 90-day rule. So in the 90 days, that's the time that she takes to almost just suss out the partner or potential partner. But she echoes what you're saying. She said, don't wait too long to introduce your children, even if it's an informal gathering, having a milkshake or going to the park, but just seeing how your person interacts with your children. Because she was saying, Chantal, that's a deal breaker. You need to know what are your deal breakers. And if your child doesn't get along with this man, or he doesn't know how to handle the children, that's not a space I want to be in.
No, and if there are any men listening to this, if you're with a woman who
Mm,
you feel like is competing for your attention from the kids, major red flag. Like if you tell this person, you know what, like I just want to be alone with my kids tonight, I'll see you tomorrow, and they throw a hissy fit, this is why second marriages have a much higher divorce rate, because of issues like
yes.
these, and you do need to suss that out in the beginning, big time.
But I think what you also touched on for me, which is so powerful, is the reality is there is going to be another person as part of this dynamic on the other
Yeah,
end who's also help raising this child. They're not going anywhere.
they're not
Just
going
because you've
anywhere.
walked away from the marriage, you share a child with that person and they are going to be a part of your life forever because of this little human that you raise. It's going to grow into an adult. There's going to be weddings, there's going to be graduations, there's going to be all sorts of events. And it's easier said than done, but it's about putting that stuff aside and focusing on what's important. My
Yeah,
ex-husband and I always said Mila is our center and we
hmm
need to make decisions around her as our center. And that's
hmm
been our grounding principle for the last 4 years.
yeah, I mean, my daughter's father has told me, like, over the last 6 years, he's dated a lot of people, and many of them just did not want to come in second. They did not want to deal with a baby mama. They did not want that. And, it's almost like they would prefer if there were negative feelings between us, because the good feelings between us or the positivity between us is too intimidating. And, kudos to these ladies who knew what they wanted, but many of them want to be number one, and that's not something you often get to be in blended families. But I do feel
Yeah.
number one in my husband's eyes. I do think he does a really great job of still meeting his ex-wife's needs and having the conversations, and they're parenting their daughter beautifully, and he really gives me the space and freedom to have the relationship I need to have with my daughter's father, which has only gotten better over the years, which has made for more peace all around, you know. And I
Yeah.
mean, now he comes on vacation with us every winter,
Oh,
and it's
does he?
like, yeah,
Fantastic. I love that. I really
yeah,
do love that.
yeah. But you know what? My daughter benefits, and everybody's at peace, and
Yep.
everyone's happy, and happy wife, happy life. So,
So I think we both interviewed Suzanne Vickberg, and I loved her thoughts on things, right? It's about challenging the status quo. Who
hmm.
says because you get divorced, you need to hate your ex? Yes, I understand there's different situations, but if you can build that relationship and you can genuinely co parent the hell out of it for the sake of your children, it's only going to benefit all parties, especially the little humans that you're raising.
And my mom would always say, like, the challenges of a blended family, like, my mom would say, stick through it. Like, you only have so many years, this little amount of time while these kids are
Yeah.
kids and they're in your care. Like, this time's going to pass. And the better you handle it, the more maturely you handle it, the more respectful you are of the children, of their biological mom or dad, the better your relationship is going to be long term. The more trust, the more respect, the more care there will be. And it's worth the work.
Absolutely. I mean, that maybe brings me through to your book then, Michelle, is it's about going through the hard stuff and knowing that it takes time to heal. Can you tell me a little bit about your book and just the premise of you writing that? And then importantly, where in South Africa can we get our hands on or a hold of it? Where can we order it?
Um, well, in terms of ordering it, in South Africa, I think you could do Goodreads, and I know it's at public libraries. I mean, people send me pictures from all over the world with my book. I don't know if Amazon will deliver there, but I know it's available in a lot of places. But
Okay.
my book was really, I mean, I had always wanted to write a book. I was a journalism major in undergrad, and my grandpa's joke with me was always like, you know, he helped pay for me to go to college, so he would always say like, "Where's my return on my investment? Like, where's the book?" And I always knew I was going to write one. I had so many projects started, but nothing really felt right. And then once I was in this space and I had my podcast and people were hiring me to help them with their divorces after I got certified and all of that, people were asking where they could buy my book. And I'm like, now's the time to write the book. And my grandpa at that point was at the end of his life and very ill. And I went to see him in his last days, and he's opened his eyes in his hospital bed and was like, "Where's the book?" That was like the last conversation we had, and I had my laptop in my hand. I sat next to him. I was outlining stuff for my book coach that I was working with, and so the book came a couple months after he passed, and it was really him who pushed me through. But there was so much at that point that made sense to me about what I had to write about, and I shared some of my story. And the book is almost 30 chapters, very short, quick chapters. Every scenario you'll find yourself in after separating, how to handle the legal part of things, how to create
Hmm.
what to put in your parenting plan, how to handle that first night without your children, how to handle your ex's anger, how to handle your own anger, how to start dating again. Like all of it is in there. It's really like a
Stunning.
what to expect when you're expecting. I'm really proud of it. It's
As
been
you
out.
should be.
Yeah, thank you. It's been out about a year and a half now. We just did a second printing. Simon and Schuster is my publisher, and they reached out in March and they said, "Great news! We're doing a second printing," and that was awesome to hear. So, you know, the information is evergreen. It You could pick it up 10, 15 years from now, and the information will still apply. So
Yeah.
proud of it. Hopefully, it's not my last book.
So stunning. And again, I think so many people go through divorce and they don't realize there's so many resources available to them. I mean, going into a blended family dynamic, there are resources available. There are people like you who have gone through this, literally got the t-shirt, have written the book, published the book, second print running, and it's available. So it helps so much. And I think that's one of the reasons for me why this podcast is just so special to me is to give people the support that I didn't have and to also show that the world is smaller than we think it is. To be able to have someone like you on the podcast for here to share your insights and your experience is just, yeah, you've made my week. So thank you, Michelle.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, Michelle, we absolutely want to have you on the podcast again. I'm going to try and see where we can get a hold of your books. I'll put those links in the podcast. But thank you so much. And I just wish you and your family all the best. And I'm going to be thinking about you with your little girl being 8 going on 18 and mine 6 going on 16.
Oh my God, girls. I mean, I love it, and I'm also terrified at the same time.
Yeah,
But
same page.
congratulations to you and your blended family. It sounds like it's really
Thank you.
coming along
Thank
nicely.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Have a lovely day further.